Shalom and welcome back to the Light to the Nations channel. In this video tonight, I want to share with you an important study that has been independent list for a while, and now it's becoming more critical to share this information with you, because it's close and quite related to the Moedim, the feast of Shabuot. For those of you that already are following the calendar that I have been sharing, you need to keep in mind that Shabuot is coming in this weekend, what we call in the Gregorian calendar this next Sunday, June the 4th. So it's important because I have been receiving some questions and people asking when we need to celebrate Shavuot. And in order to calculate Shavuot, we don't have a specific date in the Torah as the other Moedim, because the way to understand when Shavuot is calculating when Reshith Katzir needs to be celebrated. So the study that we're going to share tonight is related to this Moedim, called Reshith Katzir. Most of the people call this Moedim Firstfruits, but the real name in Hebrew is Reshith Katzir. Okay. As part of this study, we will see soon. We will review why people are calling this Firstfruits. And if this is really right or a proper name to call it, call to the Moedim. So, I shared long ago, around 2 months ago, that I received some understanding about how to discover directly from the word of YaHuWaH, directly from the scriptures, when Reshith Katzir needs to be celebrated. And this is basically the information that I want to share with you. So I hope some of the questions or doubts that you can have, we are going to be able to study together and discuss together in this video. Like always, my invitation, if you have any doubt or some questions or comments after this video, you can send me an email to light2everynation@gmail.com. and I will do my best to answer your questions and clarify anything that maybe is not clear on what we are gonna review in this video. Like always, my invitation as well, take your Bibles, take your scriptures, and read along with me, and do your own research, because all the truth, we find it over here. Don't rely on my words. We need just to rely on YaHuWaH and let the Ruach HaKodesh guide us. So let's start and let's see what we're gonna find in this study. I'm gonna share my screen, so let's move on. Reshith Katzir according to the scriptures. So what are the key points? What are the main points that we are gonna share in this study? Is basically we're gonna talk about what's the common understanding of Reshith Katzir or Firstfruits. And as part of this, we are going to analyze, based on the scriptures, when this Moedim needs to be celebrated, when is really the date for this Moedim. As part of the common understanding, there are some people that understand that the Shabbat that is related to this Moedim is the high day on the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Hagamatzot. Or some people believe this is the weekly Shabbat that needs to be considered. We will review more in details when we see the text in the scriptures, and we will discover directly from the word of YaHuWaH what's the proper interpretation, what we need to consider. Okay. We also check here is if this feast is really the first fruits, or it should be called the first of the harvest. And we will review this, checking directly the Hebrew and checking directly the scriptures, the word of YaHuWaH. Okay, so also I call this the title basically "Eat or Not to Eat." You will understand soon in the study, and this is one of the key in order to understand as well when the Moedim is to be celebrated. Okay. Also, an important topic we will review is that celebrate or to work, and also this is related to how to identify directly from the scriptures when Reshith Katzir needs to celebrate it. Okay, we will review, like always, some few witnesses from the scriptures, and also there is an important understanding from a lot of people about the story of YaHuWaH ben Nun. YaHuWaH is Joshua ben Nun. When he celebrates with the children of Israel in Gilgal, they celebrate Pesach. So most of the people understand that what they were doing over there after on that place after the Pesach, that they were celebrating Reshith Katzir. So we will analyze this story, and we will see directly, looking for the answers in the Dvar of YaHuWaH, what's the meaning and the connection of this story with Reshith Katzir. Okay. And finally, we will do an analysis of the first Exodus, and Israel being the firstborn, because somehow, and this is something that I was able to see and I wanted to share with you, a potential connection with Reshith Katzir related to the first Exodus. It's not something that we can find full certainty in the scripture, but I want to share with you what I was able to see, because we can see something that it could, if it's really like this, it's really amazing. So basically, those are the main points we will discuss, we will review, and I will share with you in this study. Again, I hope that you will find the answers that you're looking for here. Okay, so let's start. Let's start talking about the common understanding of Reshith Katzir, and basically just to understand when this Moedim needs to be celebrated. And most of the Moedims are described in the book, in the Sefer Vayikra. This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 23. And specifically regarding Reshith Katzir is between the verse 9 to 14. So it reads the following. It says, "And YaHuWaH spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, when you come into the land," and this is important because this specifically, most of the Moedim, if you read it carefully, are related to the land, when the children of Israel are going to be in the land, in the promised land. But this specifically, and we will understand later, has an important and a direct connection with the land. Okay, so that's why YaHuWaH is telling Moshe these specific words when they come into the land. Okay, which I give you, and shall reap its harvest. So we see there is a connection between the harvest and this feast and this Moedim. "Then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest." So we see here first, and we will review it later in details, a first mention about the first fruits. Okay, keep that in mind. So the verse 11 says the following, "And he shall weigh the sheaf before YaHuWaH for your acceptance, when on the morrow after the Shabbat the priest weighs it." So we see here, and that's why I highlighted this in red, that we have a direct instruction, that all of this, that is the instruction related to Reshith Katzir, needs to be done on the morrow after the Shabbat. The priest, we need to present this to the priest, and the priest needs to present this offering to YaHuWaH, a wave offering to YaHuWaH. So it's in the morrow after the Shabbat. "And on that day, when you weigh the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb a year old, a perfect one, as an ascending offering to YaHuWaH, and its grain offering, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, and an offering made by fire to YaHuWaH, a sweet fragrance, and its drink offering 1/4 of a hin of wine. And you do not eat bread," and he's talking about leavened bread, You can research this, and actually the Hebrew word here is lechem. This is the word for bread, leavened bread. So it says, and you do not eat bread or roasted grain or fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim, a law forever throughout your generations in all your dwelling. So basically, we see the entire instruction given by YaHuWaH through Moshe to the children of Israel. We are the children of Israel, so this is an instruction for us as well about this specific feast, and we see the connection with the land, we see the connection with the harvest, and we see the connection and the instruction that this needs to be done on the morrow after the Shabbat. So if you are aware about the details of Shabuot, we also see here in this Moedim, in the same way that we see Shabuot, we don't have a specific date when YaHuWaH is telling us when we need to celebrate it. Okay, so this is the main discussions we have, and that's why we have at least 2 or 3 actually understanding of when this feast needs to be celebrated. So basically, the main understanding from all the people, and this is from Judaism and also from the Torah community, that this feast somehow is connected directly with the feast of unleavened bread. The Hebrew name for that feast is Chag Hamatzot. What does it mean? It means Chag is feast, and Hamatzot is the matzah. It's basically the plural of matzah, and matzah, this is unleavened bread. So this is the name in Hebrew for unleavened bread. So the general understanding, as I said, of most of the people, that there is a direct connection between both Moedim. Okay, so if we see basically the calendar, and this is basically a picture of the calendar that I have been sharing with you, we will use it as a reference only. We see here in the day 15 of the first Chodesh, 14 we have the Pesach in the evening, we know, and in the day 15 we're starting the feast of Chag Hamatzot, or unleavened bread. And this feast, if you remember, is last for 7 days until the 21 of the Chodesh. There you have the 7 days. So in Judaism, basically all the Jewish people understand that or the Jewish people that practice Judaism, because there are Jewish people that basically doesn't practice Judaism, and there are some Messianic Jewish. So let's call it Judaism, just for the better understanding. So in Judaism, they believe that the instruction here that we have the morrow after the Shabbat, they consider that the Shabbat, in this case, is the high day, the day 15, that is considered also a type of Shabbat, a Shabbat, is the Shabbat that we have the instruction here on Reshith Katzir. So they believe that in this case, if this is the Shabbat on the instruction, Reshith Katzir needs to be celebrated on the 16th day of the Chodesh. Okay, that's the understanding on Judaism. And the understanding for the Torah community, most of the Torah community, I would say that 98% most probably, they believe that the instruction we have over here is talking about the weekly Shabbat, and it's the weekly Shabbat that is between or within actually the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Chag Hamatzot. In this case, just to use as a reference, this should be the Shabbat, so meaning that the Reshith Katzir is on the 19th day of the Chodesh. Okay, and this is, there's a lot of people in the Torah community that are following the lunar calendar. This calendar is based on the scripture, as have been sharing with you in other videos, other studies. And it's not based just on the sun, it's not based just on the instruction of Enoch, in the book of Enoch. It's based on the instruction and the understanding and the revelation we see directly from the Devar of YaHuWaH also from the book of Enoch, of Hanoch. So there's some changes here that in case they are following the lunar calendar, the 15th day is, I don't know, close to the weekly Shabbat. You know all of this if you follow the lunar calendar in the past. But the most important thing here related to Reshith Katzir, no matter the calendar people are following, is that the understanding is that this instruction is talking about the weekly Shabbat, and that's why it's after the weekly Shabbat within the Feast of Unleavened Bread that Reshith Katzir needs to be celebrated. Okay, so that's the basic understanding. So let's take a look, and as I said in the content of the topic that we're going to review, is we will discover directly from the word of YaHuWaH in the next slide what of this understanding is the correct one. Okay, so let's move on. Let's review it. And before moving forward, I haven't shared with you, and if you have downloaded the updated version of the calendar, is that what I understood from the word of YaHuWaH is that Reshith Katzir is none of this option. Reshith Katzir is on the 26th of the month, the Chodesh, and is after the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So we will see, and I will explain you why I have this understanding and what are the witnesses we have in the scriptures. Okay, so let's move on. So is the High Shabbat or the weekly Shabbat? So let's see directly the instruction on the word of YaHuWaH. We will continue in the Sefer Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, verse 15 and 16. So we saw this in the previous slide, and it says the following: "And from the morrow after the Shabbat, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering." Okay, so let's put the calendar again in this format now, and we see here the first day of the week until the Shabbat. And we saw in the previous calendar, and the calendar that I have been explaining to you in the other videos, that the Pesach is always in the third day, and Chag HaMatzot is starting on the fourth day of the Shabuot, the fourth day of the week. So we will use this as a reference. So the understanding from the Judaism is that they are considering the High Shabbat for this instruction, so they are counting the Reshith Katzir on the 16th day of the Shabuot. Okay, so but we see in this text another instruction, an important instruction in the verse 16. This is the following: "You count 50 days when you shall bring a new grain offering to YaHuWaH." Okay, so we have the instruction here is that starting on this day of the Reshith Katzir, we need to count the 50 days. And that's why Shabuot in Greek is called Pentecoste, and from that Greek word we got the Pentecost name for the feast of Shabuot, because we need to count these 50 days, okay, between Reshith Katzir and Shabuot. So, and this is called in Judaism, or Jewish people are calling this count the count of Omer, okay. So it's 50 days that we need to count based on the instruction we see in the Torah. So according to Judaism, the 50 days are starting on the 16th day of the Shabuot in this example. So meaning that the 50th day on when Shabuot would be celebrated is in the 5th day of the third month. Okay. So, but this is not the only instruction we see in this text. You see, what are the following instructions? It says, "You should count for yourselves 7 completed Shabbats." It's talking about Shabbats. And it says in the following 16, "Until the morrow after the 7th Shabbat, you count 50 days." So it's not only counting the 50 days, we need to count Shabbats. So if Judaism in this case is considering the High Shabbat as part of the count, in order to define when Reshith Katzir is, we need to consider the 21 as well in the count. So meaning that this is the first, the 18 is the first Shabbat, 21 is the second, 25 is the third, the 4, 5, 6, 7. And we see in the instruction that after the 7th Shabbat, we need to count 50 days. So we see this is the 7th, this day should be the 50th days. And we see that the count is the day 39. So there is not harmony, there is not alignment at all with the instruction, with the whole instruction we see in the book of YaHuWaH, Leviticus. So also, if we don't consider the 21 as part of the Shabbat and we are starting the weekly Shabbat count only, but starting in the 16, we see that this is the first one, first Shabbat, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The day 30 of the second month is the 7th Shabbat, meaning that the next day, the first day of the third month, is the day 50th. And we see in the count that is only the day 46. So again, in the two options, considering the 16 as Reshith Katzir, we don't see an alignment, we don't see harmony with the entire instruction we see directly in the Devar of YaHuWaH in the Torah. So what happens if we go on the other understanding from the Torah community, basically considering the weekly Shabbat? That means that the 18 is the first weekly Shabbat during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, meaning that the Reshith Katzir is in the day 19. So if that's the case, the count of Omer, or the 50 days count, should start in this day. So we have in green the other option. And we see that the 50th day, the day of Shabuot, should be in the 8th day of the third month. Okay, so if that's the case, that means that the first Shabbat on the count of 7 Shabbats that we see in the instruction here is this one, the 25. So this is the first one, second, third, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we see that after the 7th Shabbat, we need to count 50 days. And exactly in this day, we have the 50 days. So it's quite easy, it's just to following the entire instruction, the complete instruction we see in the Devar of YaHuWaH. So it's basically the only way that we are going to fulfill the entire instruction is that considering the weekly Shabbat. We need to start the count only after the weekly Shabbat, meaning that the understanding of Judaism is not the right one. Only this needs to start after the weekly Shabbat. Okay, and we have a second witness here, and this is in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verse 9, because it says the following: count 7 weeks for yourself. Begin to count 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the grain. So we know that weeks is coming from the Hebrew word Shabuot, and I was sharing with you as part of the calendar study, is that this word Shabuot is directly connected with the word Sheva, that is 7, and is directly connected to the word Shabbat, that is the 7th day of the Shabuot. So it's basically a count of 7 days. And we see the quite amazing harmony here, because if we're starting the first day of the week, we have the first week, the second week, the third, the fourth, the 5, the 6, and the 7th week, and after that we have Shabuot. So we see 2 different instructions, but it's related to exactly the same thing. First counting Shabbat, and the other one counting Shabuos, or Shabuot is the plural for Shabuot. And we have the same understanding that we need to start counting after the weekly Shabbat. But the important question here is that, what weekly Shabbat? Why we are understanding here is that the count needs to happen within the Feast of Matzot, or the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And this is the answer, the important answer that we will discover in the next in the couple of next slides. Okay, but before that, I want to stop a little bit and answer this question: is this Moedim properly named? We need to properly name first fruits, or should be the first of the harvest? And I want us to review a little bit the Hebrew on this passage in order to understand what's the proper interpretation, what's the proper name for this feast. Okay, so it says in the Sefer Vayikra, in the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, verse 9 and 11, in the version that I'm using always, that this is the scripture from the Institute of Scripture Research, and it says the following in the verse 9. And YaHuWaH spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you should say to them, When you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the firstfruits of your harvest to the priest. So here we see the important statement that I told you before, is talking about the first fruits of your harvest. So from here, the entire understanding from all the people is coming, and this is the foundation most of the people are using in order to call this Moedim the Moedim of the first fruits. Okay, so let's review the Strong Concordance, the Strong Dictionary for that, and in order to do that, we will use the same text but with the King James with the strong numbers. So if we see here, we see exactly the same statement, the same phrase. It says, of the first fruits of your harvest. And we see what are the Hebrew words or the strong numbers for the Hebrew words for each one of them. So for first fruits, we have the H7225. And for harvest, we have the H7105. So if we check the details on the Strong Dictionary, we see for the H7225, this is the way to write this word in Hebrew, and it's pronounced Reshith. Okay, and this is the meaning from the same as H7218, and the meaning is the first in place, time, order, or rank. In this case, it's talking about specifically about first fruit, but the meaning is the first. Other meaning is beginning. Other meaning is shift. Other meaning is first, principal thing. So we see that the main meaning for this is related to something that is first, something that is the head, something that is the beginning of something. It's not talking about fruits at all. The meaning for this is first of all. Okay, so how we can understand this, and let's take a look on the root word, the H7218, and it says the following. What is this word? Is the word Rosh. And keep in mind, we saw this word in part of the study of the calendar when we were talking about the Chodesh or the Chodeshim. There is a special Chodesh that is called Rosh Chodeshim, and in this case, Rosh, it means the head. This Rosh Chodeshim is the head of the months. So Rosh is coming from head, and we see the explanation and description over here. It says, from an unused root apparently meaning to shake the head. Also is meaning the beginning, captain, chief, company, first, and all of those meanings. So we see the important connection here is that the word that we see here for first fruit is coming from Reshith. That's why the proper name in Hebrew for this feast is Reshith Katzir. And this word Reshith is coming from Rosh, and the meaning for all of this is the first, the beginning, the head, the chief. Okay? And the second word we see here is the H7105, and this is the word Katzir, and it basically means harvest or the crop. Okay? So that's why we see the proper name in Hebrew should be Reshith Katzir, and it's not talking about the first fruits at all. It's talking about the beginning of the harvest, or the first of the harvest. So the proper name, if we want to translate this Moedim to English, is the first of the harvest. Okay? And something that I wanted to share with you, because this will bring more clarity to what I have said so far. So this is the way to write Reshith. Okay, these are the a Hebrew way to write Reshith. Okay, and as we already saw, this is Reshith, and the proper meaning is the first or the beginning. But there is another word that is quite known by all of us, that is written very similar, but with just one exception, and it's this one. You see, it's exactly the same letters in Hebrew, but the only things that we are adding at the beginning, keep in mind that Hebrew is written from right to left, so we are adding at the beginning an additional letter, and this is the letter Beit. Okay, and the letter Beit in this case is working as a preposition. And you know, this word in the way that it's written over here, and we see it's exactly the same word Reshith, but with this letter Beit over here. This word, we see it in a very special place. And what is this place in the Torah, in the scriptures? It's in the book of Genesis. And you know, the book of Genesis, in Hebrew, the real name for the book of Genesis is Bereshith. Okay? And it's written like this in the chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, Elohim created the Shamayim, or the heavens, and the earth. And you see here, what is the word for the beginning? It's the H7225. It's exactly the same word that was translated first fruit here in Vayikra, Leviticus. Here in the book of Genesis, or the Sefer Bereshith, was translated the beginning. So it's basically, the letter Beit over here is basically the preposition for in the. But beginning is basically Reshith. So this word is Bereshith, Reshith, Bereshith, and it means in the beginning. So basically, as I said, the proper name for this Moedim is the first or the beginning of the harvest, and this is quite important, that is related to the harvest. The beginning of the harvest, the first thing that we are taking from the harvest. And we will talk later what's the important connection about the harvest between this one and Shabuot, because this has a so profound meaning, so profound prophetic meaning, that I will be sharing with you in the last days study, because this is directly related to the prophecies, is directly related to the parables of Mashiach. Okay, so with this understanding, we can have a question. So if this is not the first fruit Moedim, when is first fruits? If this is the first of the harvest, the beginning of the harvest, when is the first fruits? And we will see it. So what is the true feast of first fruit? And we see here in the book of the Sefer Shemot, the book of Exodus, chapter 23, verse 14 to 16, we see the following. It says the following: 3 times in the year you are to celebrate a festival to me. And this is quite important, because not all the Moedims are called festival. The Hebrew word for festival is Chag. In plural is Chagim. So not all the Moedims are called Chag, are called a Chagim, or a festival. Just 3 of them are called a festival, and we see it here. Let's continue in the 15. Guard the festival of Matzot, the Chag HaMatzot. Okay? 7 days you eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you at the time appointed in the new moon. In this case, is the Chodesh of Aviv. For in it you came out of Mizraim, and do not appear before me empty-handed. It's not new moon, remember, it's new month, or the month. And the 16, it says, and the festival of harvest should be YaHuWaH Katzir, or festival of harvest. The first fruits of your labor which you have sown in the field. So we see the festival of the harvest, and we will see how this is directly connected to Shabuot. It's not clear that this is the feast of Shabuot, but we will see another witness in the Torah. So this festival of the harvest is also related to the first fruits, as is written over here, of your labors which you have sown in the field. So everything that is growing on the field that is related to the seed that we are sowing. Okay? And the third one, and the festival of the ingathering, at the outgoing of the year, when you have gathered in the fruit of your labor from the field. So the festival of the harvest are related to everything that we gather from the soil, from the ground, that we put the seed on the ground, we sow the seed of the ground, and the festival of the ingathering is related to the fruits that are growing on the trees, because it's not related to something we saw on the field, it's something that we were working on the field and we are gathering the fruit. Okay? So if we do exactly the same analysis with the strong numbers, we see that the word for first fruits over here related to the festival of the harvest is the Hebrew word H1061, 61, sorry, H1061. So let's review what is the meaning. And this is the word to write this one in Hebrew, and the way to pronounce it is bikur, and the plural is bikurim. And this is coming from the root word, the 1069, and the meaning is the first fruits of the crop, first fruit. So it's basically, this is the proper Hebrew name for first fruits, is bikur or bikurim. And let's review what's the meaning for this root word, the 1069. And the way to write it is this one, we pronounce it bakar, and this is the description: a primitive root properly to burst the womb. Basically, is to bear or make early fruit of woman or tree, to give the birthright. So this is talking and directly connected to the firstborn. And let's look for the word for firstborn, is the 1060. And you see, we write this down exactly in the same way in Hebrew like this one for first fruit. Only the nikuts, the pointings, are different, but we know that these are coming from the Masoretes. So basically, we're talking about exactly the same word. And what's the meaning for this word? Is firstborn, the eldest son. So when we're talking about the bikurims, we are talking not only about the first fruits. That's what I wanted to share with you. We are talking about the firstborn. And this is quite important because it's also having prophetic implication. And it's very important that we understand that the first fruit is exactly the same like the firstborn, and we see the connection is exactly the same word in Hebrew. And we see that this feast, when the firstborn needs to be presented, that is in the feast of the harvest, and this is the feast of Shabuot. So how we can confirm this, and I don't have it here on the text, but I'm going to read it for you. And the first witness we have in order to confirm what I have said is in the Sefer Shemot. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 34, verse 22. Book of Exodus, chapter 34, verse 22. And it says the following: and perform the festival of Shabuot for yourself, of the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the festival of ingathering at the turn of the year. So we see exactly here, because later in the 23 it says, 3 times in the year all your men are to appear before the Master YaHuWaH, the Elohim of Israel. So we see here that the festival that in Shemot chapter 23 verse 16 is called the festival of the harvest, in the same book, Shemot chapter 34 verse 22, is called the festival of Shabuot, the first fruits of the wheat harvest. So let's go to the second witness. This is in the Sefer YaYikra. This is the book of Leviticus. Sefer YaYikra, book of Leviticus, chapter 23, verse 17. And this is talking directly about the feast of Shabuot. And it says the following, 23:17. Bring from your dwelling for a wave offering 2 loaves of bread of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour they are, baked with leaven. Listen to this. First fruits to YaHuWaH. If you look at for the Hebrew words for first fruit here, you will find out that it's exactly the same word, bikurim or bikur. Okay? So the feast of Shavuot, when we need to present the 2 loaves of bread, are called the first fruits to YaHuWaH. And the third witness is in the Sefer Bemidbar. This is the book of Numbers. Sefer Bemidbar, book of Numbers, chapter 28, verse 26. 28, verse 26, it says the following. And on the day of the first fruits, when you bring a new grain offering to YaHuWaH, at your festival of Shabuot, you have a set-apart gathering, you do not survive work. This is quite clear and quite amazing. Let me read it again for you. 28:26, it said the following. And on the day of the Bikurim, on the day of the first fruits, when you bring a new grain offering, we are talking about that we are performing the harvest. We are taking the first fruits of the harvest, and we are bringing this first fruit, this Bikurim, this firstborn offering. We are bringing this new grain offering to YaHuWaH when at your festival of Shavuot, and then you have a set-apart gathering, you do not survive work. So we see how amazingly we can confirm directly from the Devar of YaHuWaH, we can find the answers. That the feast of first fruits is basically, we're talking about exactly the same thing as the firstborn, and this is the feast of Shavuot, the Hag Shavuot. Hag Shavuot, the feast of weeks, the feast of Shavuot, is the feast of the first fruits, is the feast of the firstborns. This is quite important. Keep in mind, Reshith Katzir, the proper name is the first of the harvest, or the beginning of the harvest, and the feast of Shavuot is the feast of the first fruits, or the feast of the firstborns. It has implications in terms of prophetic calendar and prophecies. That's why it's important you understand this difference. So let's continue. So basically, if the Reshith Katzir is the feast of the harvest, is the first of the harvest, we need to understand what is the connection between first Reshith Katzir with Shavuot and the harvest season. And this is very important because this is basically the prophetic implication and the prophetic meaning and the prophetic importance for these feasts. So we see, and we will use this calendar just for reference. We see the 50 days that we need to count, and the first day is the day we started, is the day of Reshith Katzir, and the 50th is the day of Shavuot. And let's review again what is written in YaHuWaH, Leviticus chapter 23. And YaHuWaH spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, When you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, we see that everything is related to the harvest. Then you shall bring a sheaf of the first or beginning of your harvest. You see, we need to bring the first of the harvest to the priest. And he shall weigh the sheaf before YaHuWaH to your acceptance. On the morrow after the Shabbat, the priest weighs it. So, the important things, and this is the amazing thing and the connection with the harvest, because we have the same instruction for this feast in the book of Devarim, Sefer Devarim, book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verse 9 and 10, and it says the following. Count 7 weeks for yourself. Begin to count 7 weeks when? From the time you begin to put the sickle to the grain, and you shall perform the festival of Shavuot. So we see that Reshith Katzir is basically the time that we need to put the sickle to the grain. It's the time that the harvest is starting. And we see that's why we need to bring the first of the harvest on this day, and 50 days later we have the feast of Shabuot. Okay, and we saw that in the feast of Shabuot we need to present the firstborn, the first fruits of the harvest. Okay, so it's basically starting in this day until the 50th day is when we have the harvest. So let's review again the book of Shemot, book of Exodus, chapter 23, 14 and 16. It says the following: 3 times in the year you are to celebrate a festival to me. Guard the festival of Matzot, and the festival of the harvest, the first fruits of your labor which you have sown in the field, and the festival of the gathering, at the going of the year when you have gathered in the fruit of your labor from the field. So it's basically, we see that this is the feast of the first fruits, and it's related to the harvest. And we have in Shemot 34:22, in Exodus 34:22, it says, of the first fruits of wheat harvest. So we know that here we are starting with the barley, but here we are basically talking about the wheat harvest. So, and why this is important? Because we will see and we will analyze this later. And in the book of Ruth, chapter 2, verse 23, we see what happened with the story of Ruth, and it says the following: and she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean, till the completion of barley harvest and wheat harvest. But she dwelt with her mother-in-law. So we see first is coming the barley harvest, according to what we see in the scriptures, and then the wheat harvest. So if in Shavuot we need to present the first fruits of wheat harvest, we know that what is the harvest that is starting over here, according to what we see in Ruth, is the barley harvest. So what's going on during this 50 days period of time is basically the harvest of the barley and the harvest of the wheat. This is what we see exactly on the Devar of YaHuWaH. And this is very important that you keep in mind, because both Moedim, the Moedim of Reshith Katzir and the Moedim of Shabuot, are related to the season of the barley and the wheat harvest. And keep in mind all the parables that Yahushua said about the harvest and how this is connected to the last days. Because there's no coincidence. If Yahushua was using parables related to the harvest, he was referring exactly to a period of time. The period of time, the season of the harvest. And we can see directly from the Moedim, from the prophetic calendar for Israel, when the harvest happened. And we are seeing it now. So, important information that you need to keep in mind. So, let's start reviewing and try to answer the question directly from the Devar of YaHuWaH. Which weekly Shabbat we need to consider, and when really is the feast, the Moedim of Reshith Katzir? Because keep in mind, Reshith Katzir is not a feast. We have just 3 feasts from the Moedim, are Chag HaMatzot, Chag Shavuot, and Chag Sukkot. Those are the 3 feasts. The other ones are just Moedims, like all the other ones. But 3 are the important moments to enjoy and celebrate on YaHuWaH. So let's try to answer the question, when is really Reshith Katzir? And here we will see in the to eat or not to eat, we will see basically, we will compare 2 Moedims, and we will see that we find somehow 2 opposite commandments. You can ask me, how come where we can have 2 opposite commandments? It's impossible. We will see it now. I will show it to you. So we will compare Chag HaMatzot with Reshith Katzir. So let's start with Chag HaMatzot. We see this in the Sefer Shemot, the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 15, 18 to 20. And it says the following: 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, or matzot. Indeed, on the first day you cause leaven to cease from your houses. Important information, keep that in mind. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that being shall be cut off from Israel. This is an important warning, and this is one of the most important instructions for this feast, that nobody can eat leavened bread. The only bread that we can eat during this period of time, during this feast, is matzah, unleavened bread. Okay? So, anyone that is eating leavened bread during this period of time will be cut off from Israel. This is what YaHuWaH is telling us through the words of Moshe. Let's continue in the verse 18. It says, in the first month, the first Chodesh, on the 14th day of the Chodesh, it's not new moon, it's month or Chodesh. In the evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the Chodesh, in the evening. For 7 days no leaven is to be found in your houses. For if anyone eats what is leavened, and again we have the warning here, that same being shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whatever sojourner or native of the land. Do not eat that which is leavened. In all your dwellings you are to eat unleavened bread. So again we have the same instruction that no leaven needs to be found in any of our dwellings, and nobody, even the foreigner or the native, can eat leavened bread or something that is leavened, because if they are doing it, they're going to be cut off from the congregation of Israel. Very important warning and information. So let's review Reshith Katzir. Let's compare what is the instruction for Reshith Katzir. And we already reviewed all of the instruction, but I want you to put the attention on the verse 14, because it says the following. And this is in the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, verse 9 to 14. So let's review what is written in the verse 14. It says, and you do not eat bread or roasted grain or fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim, Allah forever throughout your generation in all your dwellings. So basically, what we have the instruction here from YaHuWaH, that we cannot eat any bread, or we cannot eat bread or fresh grain or roasted grain until the same day that we are presenting the offering. So, understanding this in a more broader way, it says that we can start eating all of this from the day we present the offering to YaHuWaH. From that day on, we can start eating bread, we can start eating fresh grain or roasted grain. This is what it's saying. Let's read it again. And you do not eat bread until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim. So let me put this in a graphical way, so it's going to be much easier to understand. So here we have the 7 days of the Chag HaMatzot, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, from the day 15 to the day 21. Okay? So we have the instruction from YaHuWaH that nobody needs to have to eat leavened bread. We only can eat matzah, as I said. So not to eat leavened bread, or not to even have leaven in our homes during this entire period of time, the 7 days. And we saw already that this is the Shabbat day, and this should be according to the general understanding, the day of Reshith Katzir. So if we consider what we have the instruction over here, what we are receiving from YaHuWaH, that starting on this day on, he's telling us that we can eat leavened bread, because this is understanding. You do not eat bread until here, and from here on we can eat bread. So we see that we have opposite commandments. In one way, he's telling us that during these 7 days we cannot even have in our homes leavened bread, or any leaven, or eat leavened bread. But in the other way, he's telling us that from Reshith Katzir on, we can start eating leavened bread. So if we place Reshith Katzir over here, basically we're having two opposite commandments. And YaHuWaH is not an Elohim that is going to confuse us. It's important to keep in mind. He's not going to put two commandments that are going to be opposite. between them. So it's something that we are not understanding really well. So this is not the formula. It's quite easy to see it like this. So if we consider, as I was telling you, that the Reshith Katzir is on the 26th, we see an amazing harmony on the Bar of YaHuWaH. Okay? Basically, what we are considering that the weekly Shabbat that we see in the instruction is talking about the weekly Shabbat after the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So we complete the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The next weekly Shabbat that is coming, there, the morrow after that weekly Shabbat, we have Reshith Katzir. And why this is bringing harmony is basically Reshith Katzir is still after the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It's still happening after the morrow after the weekly Shabbat. It's basically letting us to eat the whole grain during the entire feast of Chag HaMatzot. And the new grain we are eating, as we see in the instruction for the Reshith Katzir, only from Reshith Katzir on, even eating the leavened bread. We have the instruction that we can eat leavened bread from here on, okay, with all grain. And also, it's basically what I said, we are able to eat, and we don't have these two opposite commandments if we're keeping the feast in this day are not within the Feast of Unleavened Bread, okay. So basically, with this understanding, we see that these opposite commandments doesn't exist, and we see the full harmony on the Bar of YaHuWaH. An important point that I want to remark here is that we are so used to our modern life that we go to the grocery store, to the supermarket, and we get the flour and we prepare our bread. And actually, we don't even prepare our bread most of the time. We just buy the bread. But that's totally unnatural. This is not going according to the rhythm of the nature, according to what YaHuWaH created. We read in the book of Mishle, the book of Proverbs, that YaHuWaH is pushing us through Shalom, the Solomon king, that we need to see the ant and learn from the ant that she's collecting the food on summer in order to prepare for the winter. So in the old times, and actually there's still some people that are living in the countryside that are keeping this way of life, that they are accumulating all food during the summer in order to prepare themselves for the winter. And that was the way they lived in the past, in the time of the forefathers, even in the time of Yahushua himself. They were not able to have to refrigerate food, so they were storing food. Okay, so keep in mind what was the grain they were using in order to prepare the matzah. They were using the stored grain they have from the previous year. So all of what they were eating over here during the feast of Chag HaMatzot were using all grain from the previous year, but without leaven. And what they were using until the feast of Reshith Katzir was all grain, because if the Reshith Katzir was the beginning of the harvest, just from this moment on, they were able to have new grain they didn't have before, because the harvest is starting just here. So the commandment, basically, what we see from the Torah is that we can use all grain. They were somehow obligated, because that was the only grain they had available, to use the all grain during all this period until here. So the commandment was that they didn't have to, or we don't have actually now as well, to eat leavened bread. They were able to eat the whole grain, but just to prepare matzah, unleavened bread. And when the feast of Chag HaMatzot, the feast of leavened bread, was completed, they were still using the whole grain to prepare leavened bread, and they were starting to use just new grain from this day on in order to prepare bread. It's important for you to keep in mind, because with our modern understanding, somehow we don't see those things, and it's quite important for us to see it. So let's review another witness, and this is the celebrate or to work. Also, we're going to compare the two Moedims, and we will see that somehow we have two opposing commandments again. So, first one is that, and this is related to Reshith Katzir, is that we need to work on time. And what it means, basically. We see that in Devarim, Deuteronomy, when we're talking about the Reshith Katzir, and we saw this already, in the chapter 16, verse 9, it says the following: count 7 weeks for yourselves, begin to count 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the grain. So it's basically talking that Reshith Katzir is the moment that we are putting the sickle on the grain, and we're starting the harvest. So it's basically working on the field, working, basically harvesting. Okay? And we see several examples in the scriptures that the harvest needs to be done quickly and right on time. And actually, if you have the opportunity to talk with people that are working in the fields, working with farmers, basically, you are going to be able to understand that you need to sow the seed right on time. You cannot delay it, because if you delay it, you are not going to have the proper food, the proper results. And it's exactly the same thing with the harvest. When the time of the harvest comes, we need to start right away. And that's why there is an important commandment regarding the Shabbat. I think it's in the book of Exodus, the book of Shemot, that is saying that we need to keep the Shabbat, the weekly Shabbat, even during the sowing and during harvest time. Because the harvest and the plowing, I think it's written like that, are so important, because those need to be done so right on time, because of the importance of the how the rhythm of the air, the ground, and the seed works. It needs to be done immediately. That even on those times, no matter the urgency and the need to do it fast and on time, YaHuWaH is telling us that we need to rest on the Shabbat, even on those times. So somehow we see an indirect commandment on those words, that this needs to be done on time. But we see also the words of Yahushua, and this is quite nice, because we see the process of how the wheat or the barley is growing in the words of Yahushua in a parable. And this is in the book of Marcos. This is Mark chapter 4, verse 26 to 29, and this is the following. And he said, the reign of Elohim is as when a man scatters seed on the ground. Quite amazing parable. Then sleeps by night and rises by day, while the seed sprouts and grows. He himself does not know how, for the soil yields crops by itself. First the blade, this is the first step. Then the head, second step. After that, the completed grain on the head, the third step. And when the crop is ready, this is the fourth step. The crop is ready. Immediately he puts in the sickle, because the harvest has come. And put attention on what I put highlighted on red. YaHuWaH is describing the entire process of the harvest. And when the crop is ready, immediately he puts in the sickle, because the harvest has come. We see even in this parable that the harvest needs to happen immediately when the time has come. Important to keep that in mind. So let's review, and this is all related to the harvest. It's related to Reshith Katzir and till Shabuot. And let's review about the celebrate and rejoice. And this is something related to the feast of Chag Hamatzot. And we see this in Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 14 to 16. It says the following: 3 times a year all your males appear before YaHuWaH your Elohim in the place which he chooses. So we know that this is Jerusalem, okay? And when they need to appear before YaHuWaH Elohim? At the festival of Matzot, and at the festival of Shabuot, and at the festival of Sukkot. And none should appear before YaHuWaH empty-handed. So we are analyzing basically when Reshith Katzir needs to celebrate it, and the general understanding is this needs to be done within the feast of unleavened bread. So we see that YaHuWaH is commanding us to appear before Him in Jerusalem, all males in Jerusalem, for the festival of Matzot. Okay? And we also see this commandment in Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 12, verse 11 to 12. It says the following, "And it shall be that unto the place which YaHuWaH your Elohim chooses to make His name dwell there, there you are to bring all that I command you." If you keep reading in the next verses, it says the offering, the sending offerings, the contribution, the tithings, and all of that. It's talking about even the voluntary offering. And let's continue in the verse 12. "And you shall rejoice before YaHuWaH your Elohim." So it's basically inviting us to rejoice during this period of time in YaHuWaH our Elohim. "You and your sons and your daughters and your male servants and your female servants and the Levite who is within your gates, since he has no portion nor inheritance with you." So it's basically all the household needs to go and rejoice and celebrate in Jerusalem. And that's why those are festivals. During those festivals are moments to rejoice because of the blessing, the very hot that YaHuWaH is bringing to us. So if we compare again in the timeline that we used in the previous slide, here we have the Chag HaMatzot, the Feast of Leavened Bread, from the 15th to the 21. So it's basically YaHuWaH is telling us that we need to go to Jerusalem to celebrate and rejoice. Everybody, not only the males. If we see this here, the males are the obligated to go. But we see that all the household needs to rejoice in YaHuWaH in these Moedims. So everybody is in Jerusalem on this period of time. And you know, what happened with the people, because this is the commandment for the land, what happened with the people that are living in the north of Israel without transportation? They needed to walk. So the fields are, 4 days afar from Jerusalem walking. So they needed to go to Jerusalem. And what happened with those fields? With barley and wheat are 4 days away from Jerusalem. Important to keep that in mind. And important to keep in mind that when the harvest is coming, we need to put the sickle. But we see directly, if we are considering that Reshith Katzir, or the beginning of the harvest, is happening in the middle of the feast or within the feast, is that we are commanded that we need to put the sickle and start the harvest. So are we gonna be rejoicing, all of us, in Jerusalem, or are we gonna start working on the fields? We see two opposite commandments. How come the people that are rejoicing in Jerusalem needs to go back to their fields, even those that are far away, in order to start the harvest? They need to have the last day of the feast in Jerusalem as well. And the whole purpose that we need to rejoice during the 7 days, basically, of the feast. And we will see some examples later on. So we see how, again, we have two opposite commandments, and YaHuWaH is not going to confuse us. It's just us that we are not seeing the truth. So this is not an option either. So what happened if we consider again the 26th as part of the when Reshith Katzir is to celebrate it? Again, we see a full harmony on this. Everybody is rejoicing the feast in Jerusalem during this period of time, from the 15th to the 21. Then they have enough time to return from Jerusalem to everyone's fields. They have all these 4 days to return in order to be ready to start with the harvest. So harvest is starting on time and not in delay because they were in Jerusalem. You see the connection and the harmony and the rhythm of how this is working? That's the amazing thing of the Devar of YaHuWaH. Okay, so we see here that based on all these two examples, these two witnesses, these two analyses, we see that the weekly Shabbat cannot be the weekly Shabbat within the Feast of Unleavened Bread or Chag HaMatzot. Needs to be the weekly Shabbat after the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Okay, so let's review some few witnesses in order to see what we have been talking so far now. And the first one is in the book of Ruth. You see, this is an amazing book. Actually, I like it very much because there are so profound meanings here regarding the assembly and the bride of YaHuWaH. But also we see some important examples for what we are studying now. And let's review. This is from the chapter 1, verse 22, till the chapter 2, verse 23. And it says the following: Thus Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabites, her daughter-in-law with her, who returned from the fields of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem, listen when? At the beginning of barley harvest. At the beginning, at the Reshith of the harvest. So, everything that we will see over here are happening on the beginning of the harvest is happening on Reshith Katzir. So let's continue. And Naomi had a relative of her husband's side, a man of great wealth of the clan of the Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, Please let me go to the field and glean heads of grain, after him in whose eyes I find favor. So she said to her, Go, my daughter. And she left and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. So she started to work in the harvest, in the beginning of the harvest. As it turned out, she came to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, the near relative of Elimelech. And see, Boaz had come from Bethlehem, and said to the reapers, YaHuWaH be with you. And they answered him, YaHuWaH bless you. So let's wait a moment here. Boaz is coming from Bethlehem. Okay? If the Reshith Katzir is within the feast of unleavened bread, why is he coming from Bethlehem and not coming from Jerusalem or not coming from Shiloh? Shiloh was the place when the tabernacle was set up before the temple existed. So it was the place of reunion for the Moedim. So why Boaz is not coming from any of those places and is coming from Bethlehem when he's supposed to be celebrating the feast? We see that there is something that is not right here. It's important to keep that in mind. Let's continue in the verse 5. And Boaz said to his servant who was appointed over the reapers, Whose young woman is this? So the servant who was appointed over the reapers answered and said, It is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the fields of Moab. And she said, Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the reapers. And she came and has remained from morning until now. So he's talking about the same day, Reshith Katzir. She sat a little in the house. Let's jump to the 14, and it says, And Boaz said to her, Come here at mealtime. Then you shall eat of the bread, and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. So Boaz is basically inviting Ruth to eat leavened bread. So if this is happening during the feast of Hamatzot, how come Boaz is inviting Ruth to eat leavened bread when we don't have to eat leavened bread during this period of time? Something is not right again. And we see a clear example here in the story of Ruth, how we can understand that Reshith Katzir, based on what we already saw, cannot happen during the feast of unleavened bread or Chag HaMatzot. Needs to happen after that feast. Okay? And we see that all this story basically happened exactly in the same day, because if we continue in the 17th, and she gleaned in the field until evening, so from morning till evening, and beat out that which she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And we see the question from Naomi. Then her mother-in-law asked her, Where have you gleaned today? So it's basically everything happened on the same day. And we see Boaz at the end, and she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean till the completion of barley harvest and wheat harvest. So it's basically during this 50 days period of time, she was in the fields of Boaz. You see the amazing connection, and how even with this story we can confirm what we were reviewing before. The second witness we have is related to a celebration, and we is in the book of Ezra, chapter 6, verse 19 to 22. It says the following: And the sons of the exile performed the Pesach on the 14th day of the first Chodesh, for the priests and the Levites had cleansed themselves, all of them were clean, and they slew the Pesach for all the sons of the exiles, and for the brothers, the priests, and for themselves. And the children of Israel who had returned from the exile ate together with all who had separated themselves from the uncleanness of the nations of the land, in order to seek YaHuWaH Elohim of Israel. And they performed the festival of Matzot 7 days with joy, for YaHuWaH caused them to rejoice. So they were all together the 7 days, celebrating with joy and rejoicing on YaHuWaH on the feast of unleavened bread. No time to go and work on the field. They were fully celebrating the feast of YaHuWaH. And we see exactly the same example in the book of Divrei Hayamim Bet. This is 2 Chronicles, chapter 35, verse 1, 17 to 19. And this is basically the Melech, the king, Yoshiyahu, performing the Pesach to YaHuWaH in Jerusalem, as we are commanded in the Torah. And they slew the Pesach on the 14th day of the first Chodesh. And the children of Israel who were present performed the Pesach at that time, and the festival of Matzot for 7 days. They were celebrating in Jerusalem, celebrating the 7 days of the feast. There had not been a Pesach performed in Israel like it since the days of Shemuel the prophet. It was so a great party they were having that they didn't have time to think on working on the field and working on the harvest. It's important to keep that in mind. And none of the sovereign of Israel had performed such a Pesach as Yoshiyahu performed, with the priests and the Levites and all Yehudah and Israel who were present, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the reign of Yoshiyahu, this Pesach was performed. So it's basically we see all the people at Jerusalem, not in the fields. None of them in their fields. Everybody was in Jerusalem celebrating the great Pesach ever, as we see written over here. So basically, all the people were rejoicing and celebrating during the 7 days of the feast. Nobody of them were able, or they were thinking, to go to their fields even 4 days far away from Jerusalem to start the harvest. So we need to start seeing the connection in order to see that the current understanding is not the right one. Okay? And the last thing that I want to mention, and I will stop the video here because we have a 1 hour and 70 minutes. I will create a second part. We have a clear witness as well in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls, if you find information on this, and you are going to see clearly that the witness of the Dead Sea Scrolls are saying that the feast of Reshith Katzir needs to be celebrated on the 26th of the first Chodesh. So you can look for this information by yourself, and you will see this is the third witness we see outside the scriptures, but also the Dead Sea Scrolls are reliable information as well, is that the Reshith Katzir needs to be celebrated on the 26th of the first Chodesh, the same way that we're seeing this information on the scriptures. So I'm going to stop the video here. I will create a second part, and we will complete what is pending. So thank you for watching, and YaHuWaH be with you.